With the introduction of the narrative and of the converted perfect, you are now able to begin dealing with larger portions of text. This actually becomes easier as far as translation is concerned because you're able to start feeling and seeing the context of various statements. We will concentrate in section 12.4 on two types of word order and narrative patterns. First, we consider past tense narration. Hebrew narratives will usually begin with either a perfect verbal form, the type we discussed in chapter 3, or with the verb vayehi. This is the Cal narrative, third masculine singular of haya, and it was. You will note the lack of the doubling of the yod in vayehi is due to the tendency of a yod with a schwa to drop its dagesh. For that, consider section 14.4 if you want more information 2 chapters from now. So you begin the past tense narrative with either perfect form or vayehi, and that is then followed by a sequence of narrative verbs. For instance, consider from Numbers 32. U mikneh Rav haya livnei Reuven u livnei Gad atzum ma'od. Vayir'u et eretz Yatzer v'et eretz Gilad. V'hinei hamakom mukom mikneh. Vayavo'u v'nei Gad u v'nei Reuven. Vayomeru el Moshe ve'el Elazar hakohen. Note that the sequence begins with a perfect form. Haya is the Cal perfect third masculine singular of hey, yod, hey, haya, and it is glossed as it was. So you begin with and the possessions, umikneh, were many, were much. Which possessions? Well, the ones that belong le, possessive lamed, to the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad were many. In fact, very many. So the first piece of the narrative sequence accomplished via a perfect verb, and the possessions of the children of Reuben and the children of Gad were great, exceedingly so. After this, the narrative continues, and each successive event of the narrative is reported with a narrative verb form to continue the sequence. A narrative, vayir'u, and they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and that the place was a place of livestock. Another narrative form, vayavo'u, and they came to Moses, and then another one, Vayomeru, and they said to Moses and Eleazar the priest. So the narrative sequence begins with a perfect form, and then each further step, each next event in the narrative is reported with a narrative verb form. You will also want to note that when the form Vayhi begins the narrative sequence, it serves mainly as a grammatical marker. It may not always be best translated. For instance, you have Judges 1:1a, Vayhi acharei mot Yehoshua, vayish'alu b'nei Yisrael ba'Adonai. The narrative sequence begins with Vayhi, and then the first verb after that is a narrative form in the exact type of function that we have looked at just before this. Note, though, that woodenly you would say, and it was after the death of Joshua. While that is passable English translation, usually it's much smoother simply to say after the death of Joshua. Notice, though, in Hebrew, you have the beginning of a narrative sequence with Vayhi, and then the following verb in the narrative to tell you the next step. Similarly, when we want to form a sequence of narration in the future, or in a modal sense, we will begin with a verb that will establish the verbal sense of the passage. That form is then followed by a series of one or more converted perfect forms, all of which continue because they are converted perfects, taking their sense from the first verb in the chain. Consider, for instance, Genesis 2:24. Al kain ya'azav ish et aviv ve'et imo, v'davak ba'ishto, v'hayu lebasar echad. Therefore, Al kain, a man shall leave his father and mother. The verb is an imperfect, ya'azav. A man shall leave his father and mother, and then the converted perfect continues the sequence. V'davak, a simple vav plus what otherwise would be a perfect. So a cow converted perfect, third masculine singular from the verb davak. And he will cleave or cling to his wife, and they will be, yet another converted perfect, one flesh.